Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Burn the Rule Book podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything you were never taught about menopause, mental health, and relationships one truth at a time. I'm Rachel Boyle, a licensed couples therapist, sex therapist, and certified menopause specialist. This podcast helps you understand what is actually happening to your body, mind, and relationships, and gives you real tools to move through life with clarity, calm, and connection. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Burn the Rule Book podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why sex can be worse for women than it is for men. So today, we're naming something that many people feel but don't always say it out loud, and that is for a lot of women, sex is less satisfying or even stressful compared to what they hoped it would be. And today, I want to explore a big reason why. And that's not because women are too complicated, but because many of us were handed a default cultural script for sex that doesn't reliably support women's pleasure, safety, or comfort. So our society tends to like to really gender people into male or female. So when humans are born and one pops out looking like a boy, then there's this whole cultural script that they get handed. And if someone pops out a girl, there's a different cultural script that gets handed to them. And those two scripts are different. And unfortunately, each gender is only getting half of the script instead of the full script. And so what that looks like is that men and women grow up and they have completely different cultural experiences and ideas and belief systems relating to sex. So let's talk about the idea of the sexual script, which is the unspoken storyline of what sex is supposed to look like. And many of these scripts are shaped by could be our family of origin, our community, and our culture. And part of the cultural shaping has to do with the media, what we see in magazines, billboards, our socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those things. And that information is coming into our brains. Can't help it. It's coming in, and it influences the way women are often portrayed. So in a lot of areas in our culture, women are portrayed as objects to be evaluated, meaning they're objectified on how they look and whether or not they appear desirable, rather than people having a full-bodied experience of what a woman actually is. So cultural commentary on this goes back, decades. More than decades, which is the objectification theory about how being seen from the outside can lead women to internalize an observer's perspective. What that means in layman's terms, the observer's perspective is more self-monitoring, more body shame, and less connected to their own bodies and their own internal cues. So how does this play out? So if you've ever had a moment where you think, how do I look? Am I doing this right? Am I looking how I've seen other women look in these situations? Is my body looking how it's supposed to be? Is my body looking sexy? Is it looking desirable? Does my partner like the way that I look? That is part of that objectification script that women really internalize, and they internalize this at a really young age. So that internalization becomes like a habit. And so the great thing about internalized scripts and habits is that with education and practice, they can be changed. Now, some of these scripts is that they think that women are supposed to feel uncomfortable during sex or have pain or discomfort. They'll feel more pressure to perform in a way they think that women are supposed to be performing during sex. They also put in more emotional effort. Their bodies are put at a higher physical risk, and they can feel less safe or having less agency over the sexual experience or their own body. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that every woman is having bad sex. And I'm also not saying that every man is putting pressure on women or objectifying them. What I'm saying is that this is in our culture, and a lot of us unintentionally and unconsciously internalize this. So what we're going to explore is the pattern and how that can show up in predominantly heterosexual relationships. So in this script, there is something called the pleasure gap or the orgasm gap. So this is really interesting. There was a survey that was done that shows that heterosexual women orgasm less often than heterosexual men in partnered sex. And so the data set reports that for men, they orgasm 91% of the time versus women, they're only orgasming 64% of the time. And also, women in heterosexual relationships orgasm less than women in same sex relationships. So when women are having more orgasms with same sex relationship than they are in heterosexual relationship, part of that is skill based, right? Heterosexual partners not really knowing how best to pleasure women. And that comes from our cultural script of destination sex. And destination sex means that the object of sex is intercourse with the outcome being orgasm. And you're probably thinking, okay, but wait, isn't that how sex is done? Orgasms are great. And I'm not saying that orgasms aren't great or that you shouldn't be doing intercourse, but the goal is the orgasm rather than the goal being pleasure. So when the goal is pleasure, it really opens up a lot of more options whenever you're having a sexual experience with somebody, because the goal is what feels good for me and what feels good for my partner rather than what we call P in the V or penis and vagina sex. And our cultural sexual script really prioritizes intercourse and gives women fewer built-in opportunities for clitoral stimulation. So the gap isn't about women being difficult, it's about the structure of the script. So most women do not orgasm from penetrative sex. Most women are orgasming through clitoral stimulation, and the clitoris is not inside the vaginal canal, it is outside and above it. So while men orgasm reliably through penetrative sex, women do not. And so knowing this and finding other ways for pleasure rather than penetrative sex can really create a far more rich sex life, especially for women. Now, the other thing that happens is that our culture has normalized pain or uncomfortability during sex. And you'll get messages as women like, just relax more, use more lube, have a glass of wine. And that's not really addressing the problem, because sex is not supposed to hurt. And women should not be pushing through uncomfortable sex or sex that hurts, because it's going to set your body up to really pull back whenever it comes to any kind of sexual touch or experience. So over time, that will happen. Your body will start to pull back if you've had pain repeatedly or uncomfortability or uncomfortableness through sex. So if it's hurting, that is a sign, hey, I need to check things out medically. I need to see what's going on with the kind of sex that I'm having, and also to look at my relationship to see if there's something going on in there with me not wanting to have sex. So next, part of this cultural script is this performance burden that women have during sex, which is they're self-monitoring themselves during sex, and that's a distraction. So this is called spectatoring. So it's this performance pressure that women are wondering, what do I look like? What is my body doing? What is my partner thinking about my body doing? Rather than going internally and feeling like, hey, does this feel good for me? Do I like the way that I'm being touched here? Is there something I would like better? Is there something that I would like to have less of? So instead of following the pleasure sensations, when women are spectoring and they're monitoring how they're looking, they're not able to actually get into a really rich sexual experience because they're distracted, wondering if they're doing it right and how they're looking. So the spectatoring is kind of like watching yourself from the outside. And this creates a huge cognitive distraction, and it can reduce arousal and satisfaction. So if your brain is going into evaluation mode, it makes sense that your body is going to struggle to stay in a pleasure mode. Okay, so the next one is that women do carry an inherent risk that's higher whenever they have sex than men do. So subconsciously, our brain for women is doing this calculation risk. And it's really interesting because there was a study that was done, and if women are offered one night stand sex with a man, most of them won't take it because there's inherent risk in that. On average, men's bodies are bigger than women's bodies, so we are in a more vulnerable position. There's also the risk of getting pregnant. And our bodies haven't evolved long enough to know whether or not we're taking the birth control pill, or if the person we're having sex with has on a condom, or if they've had a vasectomy. So unconsciously, we're still doing this risk calculation. And also, there is a real risk for women who are partnering up with men that they don't know very well because of violence that's perpetrated against women regularly still, unfortunately. So all of this risk calculation is going on in the background, whether or not women realize that it's going on. So their nervous systems are going to be more hypervigilant. Now, if women are offered safe sex with a loving partner with pleasure guaranteed, now they're wanting to have sex just as often as men do. So it doesn't mean that women are too anxious. It often means that women are realistically tracking their safety concerns. The next one is the emotional effort that women put into maintaining their relationships. So it's kind of like they're frequently checking their emotional weather in their relationship. And many women have learned that sex isn't only about the feeling good for their partner. It's also about managing their partner's expectations and avoiding conflict and protecting their partner's feelings from feeling disappointment. So what this might look like in heterosexual relationships is a woman does a countdown in her head. I know if 5 days goes by without sex, my partner is going to become grumpy. They're going to become irritable. They're going to become snappy. And it's easier for me just to have sex with them than to deal with the upset and the pressure that they put on me. So I'll say this, if you're someone who wants to have sex with somebody else, a surefire way to get them to not want to have sex with you is to pressure them or get grumpy or reactive if they're not having sex as often as you want them to have sex. So women will do this countdown in my head. Okay, I'd rather just have sex with him than deal with a blowout. And over time, ladies, this is not going to help you because your body will start to resent and pull away and not want to connect with your partner because you're doing it in order to prevent the blowout or prevent your partner's disappointment rather than doing it because you actually enjoy it. So with this, also women sometimes fake orgasm because they'd rather just get the sex over with rather than hurt their partner's feelings. And so, if we're taught that we're just supposed to put a penis into a vagina and thrust and women are going to enjoy that, then if women and who they're having sex with don't know that that's not how it works, then the woman isn't going to feel pleasure. So then she's going to want it to just end and get it over with. So here's the bottom line I want you to know is that many women don't have a pleasure problem. They have this inherent script problem that they've internalized over their lifetime because of the messaging that they've received either in their family of origin, their community, or the culture at large. Many women receive the same script in all three places. First of all, I want you to look at redefining what counts as sex, right? Redefining it from P in the V, penis in the vagina, to a pleasurable sexual experience that doesn't necessarily have to include intercourse. I'm not saying that you need to throw intercourse completely out, but just starting to expand and redefine what sex looks like. Also to shift from performative, which is the spectatoring sex, to embodied sex. So if you find yourself thinking, okay, how do I look? Am I doing this right? See if you can gently drop down into your body and ask yourself, am I enjoying this, right? What feels good for me? And sharing what feels good for you with your partner. Because in most heterosexual relationships, men really do want their partners to feel good. They want their partners to feel pleasure. And they'd much rather have a partner who's telling them, hey, I really like this. This is what feels good for me. Because most men do want to be having sex with women who are into it. And next, also, if you're having pain or uncomfortability, find a professional. Find an experienced women's sexual health a professional, a women's sex therapist specialist. Find someone who specializes in exploring what's causing the pain or the discomfort, because that, first of all, needs to be taken care of. It needs to be taken care of so that you can start to enjoy sex and so that your body doesn't start pulling away. So if this episode put words to something you felt for a long time, keep listening and keep questioning the stories you were taught about what sex is supposed to be, rather than exploring pleasure and what pleasure can look like. And if you want support navigating intimacy, desire, discrepancies, sexual pain, or rebuilding trust, seek a qualified sex therapist or a clinician who takes women's sexual health seriously. You deserve it. Thanks for spending time with me today. If you found this helpful, share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you found something helpful, validating, or just a little more human in our conversation. Remember, while I'm a licensed therapist, I'm not your therapist, and I'm not a medical doctor. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical or mental health advice. For personalized care, please consult with a licensed healthcare provider or mental health professional trained in the area you're seeking support. You deserve expert guidance that's tailored just for you.